Your friends think you're one of the most sorted people they know, and honestly, you are. At work, you're calm. You handle things. You don't spiral. With your friends, you're the one people come to. You listen. You give good advice. You're steady. But then you get into a relationship, a real one, someone you actually like, and something happens. You start checking your phone every 10 minutes. A text takes 2 hours to arrive, and your whole body goes tense. You rehearse conversations in your head before you have them. You say yes to things you don't want because saying no feels too risky. You become someone your friends wouldn't recognize. And the worst part? You can see it happening. You just can't stop it. This is what's actually going on. The easy answer is anxiety. You have anxious attachment. Maybe. But anxious attachment is a description. It tells you what the pattern looks like. It doesn't tell you why it only switches on inside a relationship. Because that's the strange part, right? The anxiety isn't everywhere. It's not at work. It's not with your friends. It's specifically here, with this person, when things start to matter. The second easy answer is low self-esteem. You don't believe you deserve good things, so when something good arrives, you panic. But again, you're fine everywhere else. The self-esteem explanation doesn't hold. Jung had a different answer, and it starts with a word most people haven't heard. He called it a complex. Okay, so what's a complex? Imagine you're walking down the street and someone bumps into you, hard. You turn around ready to say something. Then you see their face. They look exactly like your old boss, the one who made your life miserable for 2 years. Suddenly, you're not just bumped into, you're flooded. Heart rate up, back stiff, that specific feeling in your chest. The person in front of you is a stranger, but your body responded to someone else entirely. That's a complex at work. Not the technical version, that's the simple one. A complex is a cluster of feelings and memories that got locked together around one experience. Usually something that happened early, something that had a lot of emotional charge. It sits quietly most of the time. You don't notice it. Life goes fine. Then something triggers it. And when it triggers, it doesn't whisper. It takes over. Jung said it this way. When a complex is activated, the ego steps aside. The complex drives. In plain English, the adult you, the calm, sorted, capable person, briefly leaves the room, and a much younger version of you takes the wheel. Now think about what that means for relationships. Intimacy is one of the strongest complex triggers there is. Because real intimacy, not just attraction, not just liking someone, but the feeling that this person actually sees you, and you actually want to let them, that feeling is almost identical to the feeling you had as a child when you needed someone to be there for you. Same nervous system, same emotional frequency. And if that early experience didn't go well, if the person who was supposed to be there wasn't, or was inconsistent, or made love feel scary rather than safe, then your mind built a complex around it. A package of feelings. Love equals danger. Closeness equals loss. Needing someone equals getting hurt. You've been carrying that package your whole life. Most of the time it stays in the bag. Work doesn't open it. Friendships don't open it. But a relationship does. Because a relationship, a real one, feels exactly like that first situation felt. The same closeness, the same stakes, the same need. And the complex wakes up. That's why you become a different person. You're not falling apart. You're not broken. You're not fundamentally anxious. You're a calm adult who has a very old program running. And intimacy is the switch that turns it on. Here's what makes this hard to fix. The complex is fast. Faster than thought. By the time you notice you're anxious, by the time you're checking your phone for the 5th time, by the time you're replaying that conversation in your head at midnight, the complex has already been running for 20 minutes. You can't think your way out of it in the moment. The rational part of your brain isn't fully in charge anymore. This is why just knowing about anxious attachment doesn't change it. Knowing the name of a program doesn't stop the program from running. What actually starts to change things is this. Learning to notice the moment just before. Not during, not after, before. There is always a moment, sometimes just a few seconds, between the trigger and the flood. A tiny window before the complex takes the wheel. It might feel like a slight tightening in your chest, a very small spike of something, a fraction of a second where you're still you. Jung called the work of finding that window individuation, becoming aware enough of your own patterns that they stop running you automatically. It's slow work. It usually needs help, a therapist, honest conversations, time. But it starts with one thing: knowing that the person who takes over when you're triggered, that's not who you are, that's who you were. In a moment when you needed something and didn't know how to ask for it. You're not two people. You're one person with an old program that runs on a very specific trigger. The calm version of you is real. The anxious version is real too. They're both you. One of them just has a 30-year head start. The relationship isn't doing this to you. The relationship is just the first thing in a long time that got close enough to find it. That's not a reason to leave. That's not a reason to stay. It's just the truth about what's happening. And the truth is actually useful, because now you have something to work with instead of just a feeling you can't explain. The next time it happens, the phone checking, the rehearsed conversations, the sudden smallness, you can ask yourself one question. Who just walked into the room? Not your partner, not the situation. Which version of you just arrived? Because the moment you can name it, the complex loses a little of its grip. Think about the last time you were in a relationship and you became someone you didn't recognize. What was the trigger? Not the argument, not the thing that happened, the first small moment, before the flood. If you can find that moment, you're already doing the work. Next video, why you fall for people who don't actually exist. Not because you're naive, because of something Jung called the anima. And once you understand it, you'll never look at intense attraction the same way again. Subscribe. We go deeper every week.